Welcome to a look under the hood of what was formerly called G Suite, but is now called Google Workspace. So it's the productivity suite that comes with Google. What we're looking at doing is looking at both the free version of G Suite, Gmail, which is gives you a whole lot of access to Google Drive, but there's also the business version, the productivity suite called Google Workspaces. So this is the idea that you actually have something very equivalent to Office 365 that you would have with Microsoft, but in the Google Cloud version. It's going to make a lot more sense, I promise, as we get into it. My name's Dante St. James. I'm going to share my screen and get the presentation up so we can get started. Now, a lot of this is not going to be death by PowerPoint. It's actually going to be live in the system itself. So I'm going to be opening up the admin interface and also the user interface for all the different tools with that. So I'll share my screen, get us underway, and let's learn a little bit about Google. But first, before I want to learn too much about Google, a bit of a quote here from Martha Stewart: "Life is too complicated not to be orderly." And I can tell you now that I'm a massive fan of Google Workspaces, and I've been using it probably in its various forms for at least the last 11 years. So it's been certainly a massive part of my life. But I also use the Microsoft Suite as well for certain contracts that I hold. So do I have a favorite out of the two? Look, I like them both for their different reasons. I guess that for for someone in a very small business and my own personal usage, I've kind of got used to the Google interface and the Google way of doing things. And honestly, it feels kind of good using it. I must admit, it feels like it's a good way to use it. Now we're going to look today at what the basics of the system are: the mail, calendar, docs, sheets, slides, even a look at Google Sites and Google Forms. And we're going to see what the administration side of it looks like as well. So I just want to make sure we cover all the main bases so you're getting everything you need to know of whether to go ahead and you maybe buy this system or maybe just trial it out for the 14 days that they give you. Or even if you just go, you know what, maybe not for me, I'd like to try something else. This is brought to you by Business Station and the Australian Small Business Advisory Services Digital Solutions Program, delivered in Western Australia by Business Station, Queensland by Regional Development Australia, Brisbane, and Treaty Business Consulting in the Northern Territory. You can watch this later today on YouTube. If you're watching it on YouTube right now, thank you for joining us. But if you're not, if you're live in this call right now, the chat window's open, the Q&A is open. So please ask questions along the way if you've got any of those. Otherwise, you can pick this up later on YouTube. I'll be uploading it in about 2 hours' time under my Dante St. James channel, and Business Station will be also uploading it under that channel as well. If you are watching on YouTube, please subscribe and hit the bell so you get notified when new instructional things just like this are being loaded to either of our channels. A bit about me before we get underway, in case you haven't come across me before in the ASBAS Digital Solutions Program. My education in this particular stuff, I've done a lot of education in the past, but the more recent stuff is I did my Bachelor and Masters of Business Information Systems and Marketing through the University of New South Wales. Then also did some study through the Chartered Institute of Marketing based out of the UK. I wasn't there, I did it remotely. And I do a whole lot of little micro credentials every year through TAFE New South Wales. Even though I live in the Northern Territory, they've just got a better system for doing all that stuff. And I work with Facebook's Blueprint Certified Lead Training Program. So I go around Australia and formally around the Asia Pacific, training groups of people and businesses and organizations on how to get better use out of the Facebook family of apps. Google's Digital Springboard Program, the government's Be Connected, ASBAS Digital Solutions, and new business assistance with NICE programs as well. I clearly don't like sleeping very often. So the first thing we need to understand about the Google Workspaces suite, it's a cloud-based productivity, office productivity suite, just the same as what was called Office 365, which is now called Microsoft 365. It's very much the same kind of setup. You're doing the same kind of thing. It's all based around email and calendaring. And then expanded things after that. Things like, you've got Microsoft Word, you've got Microsoft Excel, PowerPoint, those things, OneNote. Google's got an equivalent of that as well. And that's been growing quite phenomenally because I guess it doesn't require a lot of desktop software. In fact, you don't need the software to run this on the computer. It's all based in the cloud. Now, the great thing about that is that you can then work offline for certain things and certain accounts through Google Chrome. So you can do you can access most of your documents and get hold of them and manipulate them and create new ones in Google Chrome when it's set up to be synced in with your cloud documents. But the best part is that it probably just needs an internet connection. So it doesn't require lots of space on your computer. It doesn't require a great internet connection. It just needs enough to be able to go query things out, sync things to the cloud if it's like a spreadsheet or a presentation or a document, and it's able to work that way. In much the same way that the more recent versions of Microsoft's 365 have done that, where you can actually store everything in your OneDrive and then be able to access things like that. This is pretty much the same, but the Google version. So Workspace contains a number of different elements. So it contains the email element. It contains things like docs. So you have the equivalent of Microsoft Word, sheets, slides, which is the PowerPoint, sheets is the Excel. Then you've got things like Google Sites, Google Forms, Google Drive, which is the storage area, your calendar as well, Google Calendar. And then there's things like Google Talk and the different messaging options they've got in there. So there's lots of different things that are part of this suite. We're going to look at probably as many of them as we possibly can in 1 hour and show you what they look like and how they work. So the first thing I want to show you is probably not the one thing that most people will use, but it's one thing that a lot of people go, you know what, I wish I had known more about that. So it's called Google Sites. So I'm just going to pop out of here and then pop into my screen and open up Sites. Now, hopefully you're seeing this on your screen. It should be. Making sure I'm actually sharing the correct screen. It looks like I am. So in Google Sites, I can create a website that allows me to share it either just internally to people who have email addresses within our domain, so the clickstarter.com.au domain, or in this case, Treaty, or I can share it out to the public and actually create a website with a not particularly friendly address to it, but something you may want to share out, say, for instance, as a landing page. So one thing that I did here was create a website that was all about a series of courses that I'm doing in Townsville, Cairns, Darwin, Bundaberg, and around Australia in different locations. And when I created this, it's just a matter of using the layouts that are already there and then publishing it. And then you allow who you want to actually have see it. So I've got then different pages. I've got the Cairns page for the Cairns appointment, which is next Friday. I've got the Darwin one, which is the end of the month, and the Townsville one, which is in early next week, Wednesday next week. So in there, I've got things like all the information I want to put across, the link to get the tickets from Humanitics, and I've even got, you know, a map in there of where it's located, where the workshop is, and then all the badges from my certifications and the participants in the program, the partners. So once I want to see what that looks like live, I can go preview, and then I can see what it looks like to the end user. So because I'm not looking for people to find this website through Google, I'm only sending them there from ads that I'm running on Facebook and Instagram. It doesn't matter what the address looks like, because to me, it's just getting people to read about the stuff there based on the ads. I don't need them to find them through Google, because that's not how I'm working this. I'm doing it as a advertising campaign going to a specific landing page where everything gets processed. So for me, that's great. I've got tons of other websites I could put this on, but for me, I didn't want this on my website. I want it on a very specific project. So to give you a quick run through of how this particular tool works, I'm just going to pop back to the front screen of Sites, and then we're going to take a look at creating one. So I'm going to go blank. It's going to ask me, you know, what I want to do with this site, how I want it to look. So it opens up the basic here. So I can just say, well, my page title is going to be my landing page. Now I can then choose a theme for this. So if I go to themes on the right, I've got different sort of layouts and themes I can do. So I can Diplomat, which is the one that looks like the one I did. Vision, level, I like Vision. It's kind of put a photo in the background. And then as I hover over anything, including the site name, so I'm going to call it landing pages, I can then add a logo in there instead if I wanted to. So I can upload my logo in there, or I can just change this background image. So if I change that and go, let's select an image, we'll search for one on search, or one of the ones that's already in there. Let's just say, for instance, I'm working on a business. So that will be my new background. It automatically adjusts the photo so that the text can be clearly read on it. So it's already doing a lot of the quality work for you without you needing to go and do that in Photoshop or anything. If I go, well, I want my header to be a bit bigger than that, I can make it a large banner. I can make it a title only, take away the background image, a normal banner, or I can make it a cover. So the whole page is essentially covered in this introductory image. Let's change that. Is that spelt wrong? It was bothering me. I'm going to change that back to just a large banner. Now what I can do is add in different elements to the page. So I can insert, let's just say this section, and it gives me a place to add in a photo, which I can select an image from Google or from the Google image search. Let's make it a computer. If I spell computer right, that would probably help. So give me a range of free to use images on Google that are royalty free. In it goes. And then I can just put in whatever text I want to do. So my landing page is awesome. And then I can create any sort of layout based upon all these tools. And when I create a second page, I do it under pages. So I'm not going to dwell too much on this particular tool because it is part of the Google Workspaces thing. But the other part of this is that you can do this without having a Workspaces account. Just by having a Gmail address, you have access to this as well, and all these other tools. The biggest difference with Google Workspaces is it gives you professional administration tools that allow you to add other people on there in other addresses and manage those from one central company database. It also gives you the opportunity to have your own domain. You can't have your own domain for email addresses through regular Gmail. There's ways and means you can do it, so you can send it from something. You've got to do SMTP and POP3 settings to sort of make that all work. But in the Workspaces way, you've got the professional tools, professional level support 24/7, and you've got something which is, even though Google's not particularly unreliable, it is got reliability services built in to make sure that, even if other Google tools do go down, the Google Workspaces tools are separately allocated. So they are less likely to go down than the general free tools. So I'm going to pop out of the Google Sites, because that's just one of the first things we look at, and move back in to I guess the other parts of it which go beyond creating websites, which is the big one is mail and calendar. Now, this is the area that most people know Google's tools over. They've either used G Suite or Gmail, and they've been able to contact all that stuff, use all that stuff, use a Google Calendar as well. So we're going to look a bit more deeply into that. So if I look into my email, this looks really familiar, doesn't it? So this is a Google Workspaces email address I'm using. It looks pretty much the same as what Gmail would look like, because it essentially is Gmail. It's just the professional level. Now, the only reason I can tell it's professional is because it's got my logo and my branding over here, rather than just the Gmail and Google logos over there. So in here, I handle everything exactly the same way. I've got my folders on the left that I can make things show up as. So I can, I can file things away if I need to file them away. I can set up new emails, send them off to maybe my my other work address, and everything's very much the same. If I'm working with this, it's the same as Gmail. Sorry, all these G's are getting in the way. I can change things like, the kind of font I'm using, make the size of the font bigger and smaller, bold, italics, all those regular tools that we'd use to format your emails. And then you can attach files the same way you would. Now, the big difference is if I want to attach a great big huge honking file over that 25 25 megabytes. So 25 megabytes is usually what it allows you up to. I think it's 10 in the free version of Gmail. If I want to upload this one, which is like 763 megabytes, what it does, it tells me that this is larger than the limit, and it'll be sent as a Google Drive link. So what it's doing is automatically loading it onto a secure cloud server, much the same way you would do with things like WeTransfer, Dropbox, any of those kind of things. We have to load it up to a third party and then send it off. This will do that automatically for you. So I'm going to load that up. It's in the middle of loading that up, and it's going to insert this as a link. So as that's loading up, I can continue working on my other stuff. It's going to take a while for this one. I chose a really, really, really big file, which is quite silly of me when I'm trying to run a webinar. So I'll just cancel that out, and it will insert a link in there that people can click on. Now, you might think, I want to send this quite securely. I don't want just anybody being able to get this link. I want just the person who's intended to see it in the email to get that link. You then set what is going to be in there. So let's just say, for instance, I select something that's already in my file. If I look at all these things I've got in there, so I've got this video. That's probably a good start. So I'm going to select that video. Now, it's saying because I've selected more than 25 megabytes, because it's 25 megabytes of size in there, I can say, okay, what I want to do is insert a link. So drive link is what I want. and then it's inserted that there. Now, when I go to send this to myself, I'm just going to put a test on there, send it, and it's going to then goes, that's already, that email address is already in my contacts. So it's approving that to go as a link to another email. So if I pop over to my other email, which you can't see at the moment, it will then come up in my email with me being able to attach, to pick out that attachment. And if I don't have access to be able to get that, if I'm not secured access or a preferred person in the contacts, then it's going to prompt me to ask for permission to download it, which is a much more secure way of doing this than just popping it up into WeTransfer, which has no security, anything like that. And anyone with a link can then download that file. So that just stops it from being sort of sent around to different organizations and makes people actually do that. So if I just share my link over here now to my other screen, not that one, sharing screen over to desktop 2. So this is another G Suite account. This is the email I sent. So I'm going to click and open that one. If I go to download this now, it's actually going to let me because I'm an approved person on this particular account. So I can then download that to my computer and down it comes. Now, it's just saying that it's too big to run a virus scan, so I can download it. It's just that it's not going to run a virus scan on the way down. So if I download anyway, that's now on its way down and it's downloading to my desktop. So that's a bit more of a secure way of sending large files and using third-party things like WeTransfer. It just means that you're able to then use things that are more around the stuff that you want to use. So you're not going to use third-party Dropbox where you run out of space within 2 uploads, or WeTransfer, which once it gets to a certain size, you have to then start paying. This is included with what you're paying for access to the Google Workspaces product. So I'm just going to get back to my sharing a screen and we'll move on to the next tool. So we've done the email. If you've got any questions too, if you come in late, there's questions you can ask in a Q&A or through the chat, and I'll be able to answer those for you as we're going along. Now let's get that sharing again. Jumping between screens like a madman today. Okay, so back to our email. Now, making things go into certain places like this Zoom subscription email, I can then file this by moving it into a folder. So I can say that's my Zoom folder. So I haven't created a Zoom folder before. It's saying create a new one. Great. Let's create the new Zoom folder. That's now filed away in Zoom. This one for Pinterest, I can go the same thing. Let's file away and call it Pinterest. Now, this is not going to delete your emails after a certain amount of time. It keeps all your emails, but you may want to file things away, not to keep them, but just to make it easier for you to find them later on. So I haven't got a Pinterest folder. I'll save that across. Another one, now I have got this one as a Zoom call. So it was a Zoom notification. So now it's showing Zoom as one of my options in there. So off it goes. Now, if I look for Zoom, it will then give me not only the idea that I've got stuff from Zoom's own help desk or Zoom that's been mentioned in those emails, it gives me this one down the bottom here, which is saying, oh, I also have a folder called Zoom. So I can go in that folder and then boom, there we go. I've got then all the things that are in that folder that I've saved in Zoom. So not emails, I'm talking about files that may be saved there. I've got a Zoom file directory that I can save anything I want to in Zoom. So that's in what we call Google Drive, which is going to be the next item we'll do after the calendar. So in my calendar, looks a little bit like this, a bit crazy, I know. It's very, very color-coded and I look very, very busy and important, right? So in there, I've got lots of different things all coming in there at the same time. I've got appointments with people. I've got webinar right there. You can see I'm actually having a webinar. I've got a buffer between then to get to my next meeting with the government. And then I've got, a bunch of calls. And then finally, I get a break at about 5 p.m. when most people finish working. Then I've got another one at 6. So with all this set up, I'm using this as a way to give me an interface for all the different things I've got on. If I want to fill that time down there, I just click in it and say meeting. Now I can add things like Google Meet. I can add things like Zoom. If I've got Zoom, I can add that in as well, and it'll automatically generate those things for me. I can then color code it like I've color coded with other things into different kind of color codes according to what I want to view. So if I look at something like the buffers and the things that I don't actually have to go anywhere to get to, then they're all the yellow, but I've color coded my webinars as green and my private work as dark blue. And then I've got all sorts of other things on there. And so this Brian Cullen Live, I can see what that is and go, okay, that's a show that's on with one of my clients who I've got his calendar booked, hooked into my calendar so that I can manage those things for his social media that I manage. So there's lots of different inputs in there. I've also got lots of different calendars in there. So I've got the calendar coming from my Treaty Business Consulting. The copper reminders I don't need, but activity I don't need. Click starter I do need. Travel, I like to include that because that's where I put where I'm going to be in certain times. And I've got things like my flights. So I'm doing filming from 6:30 a.m. on Saturday, and then at 10 I go to the airport to fly to Cairns at that time. So everything's in there. And what these ones here will do, this has inherited this from my Jetstar booking that came into my email. So when it came into this email address associated with this, it automatically pulled out the information from my Jetstar flight and inserted it as a task in here. So it's saying, oh yeah, this is what you're doing. It's that flight. It's those times. That's when you're going to arrive. Here's your confirmation number. And all of that is all in place. If Jetstar then updates that and sends an email with an updated version of that, it will then move that into a new area. So I can't move it because it's not I didn't set it. It was set by Jetstar. So if that moves to maybe an hour later, they will move that spot in my calendar to an hour later. Then I can see that it's going to probably clash with some of these things I've got later in the day. I'm already seeing a clash there, so I can move that one out. So I've then changed that around. So I then got Louise followed by Lani. So you've got all these different features you can have in a calendar that lets you move things around really easily. Now I'm just going to pop into a third-party tool of mine, which I call Calendly. Now, Calendly is something where I take bookings for my stuff. So what I can do is I've got all these kind of different kinds of bookings that people can make with me based upon what program I'm working on or whether it's a private consultation. And they can go to these, so let's just say it's for one of my niece program, or actually for one of my Broome, I'm in Broome at the beginning of June, and I'm taking bookings for it now. I've already booked out, so they cannot book that anymore. But if I was saying something like my niece new starters or my let's just say a stakeholder catch up, I can view the booking page, and when it does take in one of these dates, it's syncing with my Google Calendar to tell me that on the 18th of May, these times are available for a niche stakeholder catch up. So that is actually synced in with this calendar over here, and it's telling me on the 18th, I have those times free. So it's telling me in half-hour increments what times are actually free. So then I know they know that they're booking a time that I'm actually available in, so we don't have all that awkward backwards and forwards. We're going to do a booking systems webinar based on Calendly a little bit in June, so sort of early June we'll have that one. In fact, if I look at this calendar, I can probably tell you exactly when it's going to be. So it's going to be back here, May, June, because I put all these things in my calendar, so I can see that there is booking systems for small businesses. So I can tell you it's actually in there on Friday, the 4th of June that I'll be doing that, because I use this calendar as the big source of truth of everything I'm doing, everyone I'm meeting with, and every single activity I'm going to work on. So I know when I wake up in the morning, I know exactly what my day looks like. I guess you can sort of look at some of these and go, holy crap, I'm really, really, really full on Friday the 4th. There's a lot going on. Got a question here from Fiona saying, can you import calendars from other accounts such as Microsoft Exchange? Yeah, you can. So you can add other calendars here. And I can go to subscribe to a calendar is usually where it comes from, and you subscribe to what's coming out of your Exchange calendar. So if you've got an organization that's mostly using Microsoft stuff, then in amongst that, you can then import that in, and it shows the availability in there as well. So I've actually got availability coming in from another calendar of mine. So I'm using in this program, I've got all this. So I've got this calendar here, which is coming from another government program, which I then see they synced in. So it's actually picking up all the stuff from my calendar in gray, and anything that comes in this calendar in the red is then imported into my Google Calendar as well. So even though they're different organizations, you can have this one source of truth calendar that shows everything. In fact, that's actually not my one source of truth calendar. It's on this particular organization over here, which is my absolute one source of truth calendar. So you can see that, my days are very, very full of stuff, and I work on weekends, which is very naughty, I know. So it shouldn't be. But that sort of thing is what you manage in your calendar. So all that's tied in there. Now, let's just say, for instance, if I wanted to add someone to one of these addresses, so if I pick up that hour there, and I'm going to send it to, I'm going to say Kelly catch up. All those things like Calendly and my other calendar systems are going to now show this as taken once I select this one. I can add my conferencing as Zoom. It's going to create automatically, so I've synced in my Zoom as well with it. So it will now set up a Zoom call with all the meeting and password and everything I need that will be available for that time. I can add my guests. So I'm going to add in Kelly. So I've got Kelly, let's say Sheila, I'll send it to her. So she's in there, I can add her to it. Because she's not using G Suite or Google Calendar or any of those, I can't see whether she's actually available. But I could actually put in someone who's from my organization, so someone else at Treaty, and I can see if someone else is available during that time. So let's try Claire. Claire, I know, is in the organization, and it's telling me that in her calendar, it's now showing me in these yellows what her availability is. So it's telling me that in the time I want to book her, she's not available. See the yellow? So this is someone within my organization. So if you have multiple people working with you with those email addresses, you can see their availability as well. Now you can set that up as an admin to force people to show that. It's a really cool way. So if I wanted to go, Claire, I know she's not available, so I might consider that I might want to move that to a time where she is, which is 2 p.m. Even though I'm not available, I might be able to move that one. So I go to 2 p.m. and it's 2 to 3. It's now showing that spot there. So I go, yeah, that's what I want. Is Claire available then? Let's have a look. I'm going to take her out and put her back in again, and let's see what shows. So Claire Maridani is now in the yellow. It's showing that she is actually available. So there's no problem there. In her yellow spots, I can see her availability. I can accept that one and add her in. I won't do that for now though. I can even in this case, in the case of this particular organization, I can book a room in that office. So it says add rooms or a location. So I can add a room and it shows me the locations within that office at Treaty Business Consulting. So I could book it for the Frangipani room, which is the little room that hosts, it can only hold 4 people. Look at that. That actually tells me how many people it fits. Room for 3 people in Claire's office, Megan's office, or I can move now the Poinciana room, which is the big room. So I can include the unavailable rooms, which is the Poinciana room, holds 15, but that's taken. So it's showing me the availability of rooms that have been booked as well, because they've set up rooms within this, which is when you think about it for a small business in an office where they do have just one meeting room and you want to be able to manage that, this is a really clever way of doing it. And they're not paying a fortune for this. Every person who's on this is paid, they pay about $16 a month for each person to be on this so that they can add in things like rooms. So it's a really clever way of managing that and seeing whether people are available and booking into rooms as well. So that's the Google Calendar side of things. Now, I guess what we do is move on to the next level, which is then moving into Google Drive, the docs, the sheets, all that sort of stuff. So back to my little presentation so I can get that all right for you. So now we're looking at Google Drive, Google Docs, Google Sheets, and Google Slides. So these are all the equivalent things of things like your OneDrive on Microsoft, Docs being the equivalent of Word, Sheets being the equivalent of Excel, and Slides being the equivalent of PowerPoint. Now, all of these also work in with Microsoft's format stuff and allows you to edit them as well with various levels of success. Sometimes the more complex PowerPoint presentations don't quite work. And there may be some formulas and some sort of things like pivot tables that don't quite work that well with Google Sheets yet. These are, think of these as a more scaled down version of Microsoft's very professional Office suite for those of us who don't really need all of those things in quite the same layout that what they do. But there's also a thing called Google Forms. Now, just very recently, Microsoft released their own Forms product as well. So this allows you to have forms that people within your organization or people in the public can fill out for you that you're creating from here. So let's pop out of that and let's look at what is in all these different products. So Google Docs is essentially an online version of something like Microsoft Word. Now I've got a whole lot of documents I've stored in here already that I can search for, and Google search is very good. So I can search for something like an acquittal report, and it I'm not talking to you, G. Every time I say the G word, it thinks I'm trying to talk to it and order a pizza or something. So in here, it's got my list of things that are due with acquittals. So that's an acquittal report right there. I can click on that and it's found it. If I want to look for something like maybe Dom's Bar. So it's got, yep, there's a spreadsheet of Dom's Bar and Lounge. There's a post matrix in Word of Dom's Bar and Lounge, and things like logos that I've stored in there as well. So I can find all those things on that drive. For now, though, I'm just going to start something new. Let's start with a blank document. We'll give it a title. And then I can start typing away. Now, the document works with all the standard formatting tools that something like Microsoft Word would. So you've got your text, your title, your heading 1. If you want to do that, I can say this is heading 1. Then I can start typing away. This is my typing. It's not very accurate. And then spell check comes in it. Now, I've also got Grammarly. So I've got something which allows me to correct that a bit better. Grammarly is a great tool. In fact, if you're someone who makes as many typos as I do, Grammarly is your best friend for doing a bit of a proofread over it later on. So you can then do things like inserting different items like images. So I can upload an image from the computer. Let's see what I've got. I've got something which isn't completely private. Something that's not, there we go. You got Bloomscape, Zoom, there's a background picture. So I can put that in, I can click on it, I can make it like smaller if I want to. Much the same way as when you're using Word. It also lets you do things like inserting tables. So if I insert a table, I can draw the table as, maybe 4 across and 3 down. And then I've got a table as well. So I'm going to fill in my table, change the format of the table, the text, all your colors and your formatting tools for your text are at the top here. So they're never too far away from you. There's also, some of the easier ways of you doing things like inserting something like an image can be done from the toolbar here as well. So just insert an image where you can also draw from different places. I can take something from my camera. So I'm just going to open up the camera, which is currently being used by Zoom. Hopefully you can use it at the same, it can, look, it can. So I'm going to go, and then now I can insert that photo I just took straight into my document like that. Pretty cool, huh? So you can do all these different things. It doesn't matter what platform you're on. You can use this within a Chromebook. You can use this within within, what am I talking about? Within a Mac or a PC. That's what I was looking for. And allows you to be able to do those. So it doesn't matter what format you're on. You can hop on and hop off. And being an online system, it means I can close this Mac, pick up this Mac over here and open it up, pick up my phone and go into the same apps that open that up and actually see what I want to see on my apps on the phone, and then I even hop onto one of my old PCs over there behind me where I can then open up and view my documents the same way. When you're accessing everything online, doesn't matter what device you're doing it on, you can do it. It just may put you through a bit of a security check first to make sure, wait, this is not a device I'm really familiar with. Are you sure this is you? And it can send through a multi-factor authentication request through either something like authentication apps or via an SMS to your phone or an email through to your email address as well. So there's lots of security built into these things. So you're not generally doing all this in the cloud and then everybody in the internet can see it. That said, if I want to share this with a few people, all I do is pop over to share at the top right here, and it allows me to then share this to specific people. So I can add specific people, or they can be people within my organization or people outside of it. Or I can go, you know what? I just want to get the link so I can share it to whoever I want. Now, at the moment, it's telling me, if I can zoom in here and show you that a bit bigger, it's telling me that at the moment, if I go and copy this link, that link is only available to people who are added above. But I may want to change that to, I want to add it to people within my organization, ClickStarter Australia. They can then view that. I might want to go further though and say, I want to make it so that anyone with the link, so anyone I send this to, so anyone on the internet can view this document if they want to online. As long as they got this link, they'll be able to get it. So if I was to go, yeah, I'm going to make that done. I've shared that. I can pick up that link, copy it, and I can go over to another browser window of any other browser I've got. I'm not sure if this is going to work if I go through Safari. So let's go to Safari, put it in there. And because I've got that link, which is not related to my account, I can immediately see it. So even though I'm not logged in, I'm not actually not logged in. The owner over here is logged in, but that's not me. This A over here is not me. That's someone else. So I can then request from the owner, as someone who's viewing this, to be able to edit this. And I can go, yeah, they can edit it, or no, they can't edit it. So at the moment, this person can't do any editing. They can make a copy of it and do their own editing on their own version, but the original version that was saved in their own folders and saved on their own computer and in their own browser can't be messed with. So the original can't be messed with, but someone can make a copy of it and do their own version of it. So that allows you then to share things much, much further, rather than being just always restricted to having to only share with people in your organization or people whose email addresses that you know. So once we look after that, that is how you're using your docs. Then we'll move over to Google Sheets, which is all to do with spreadsheets. So we can start a new spreadsheet, or we can open a previous one. I'm just going to see one that's not particularly going to be very private. They're probably all very private because they are. I can look at something like podcast topics. So that's a previous one that I did once before. So I can open that one, and I can see what I've done before. So I've got in here, okay, podcast topics I'm going to run over certain times of the week and times of the month and times of the year. And I can color code anything I want. I don't use this particular document anymore. So let's just say I want to copy that there across all of those. I just grab it and drag it down like you would in Microsoft Word. A quick Control Z or an undo, or this button over here will undo as well, will take you back to undo any mistakes you've made. Let's just say I want to do a formula. So if I want to put in here, this is 27, this is 36, and I want to, let's just add in some random numbers all over here. So if I want to then auto sum things like I would do in something like Excel, what I can do is just highlight what I want to auto sum, go over here to the auto sum function, sum, and then it's going, this is the formula, hit enter, and there you go. There is my result. So the same kind of stuff you've got in Excel that allows you to do formulas and that, even right down the point where I can go, this particular cell is going to be, say, equals this plus times this, or I can go the sum of all those. So it's telling me, oh, I can't really work with that because there's an error in there somewhere. So it also brings up those errors. So I can go, okay, that's not what I want. I want to go equals, say, this field plus this field minus this field, and then I've got my result in there as a calculator. So that way we've got all the same kind of, not so much macros. Now, macros are a very different thing and actually quite dangerous on computers to run them. But in this case, you can run all these formulas and create complex formulas all across different books. And those formulas like this will be picked up and taken into Excel. Now, you might think not everyone's going to be using a Sheets version. I might want to get this as an Excel document to send to others. You can do that, file, download, and you can download it as Excel. So the same thing happens in Google Docs. You can go file, download, and download it as Microsoft Word, or as a PDF if you like, or even as an HTML web page. So there's lots of different things, or an EPUB if you're using this to write a book, an ebook that you want to send out to places like Amazon or to Apple Books or something like that. So you've got lots of exporting options. The one you're going to use probably most is either getting people to collaborate with you by sharing the document with them, or you're just going to send it to them as a downloaded copy in Word. And then they can update that and send it back to you, and you can integrate in the changes. But you cannot have a doc here that's then worked on by someone else as a Microsoft Word document. Got it there. And then have those changes collaborated upon. There is a workaround though. I'm going to download this as Microsoft Word. And I'm going to go back into loading that up. So I'm going to go back to my collection of documents. I'm now going to upload a document. So I'm going to go File, plus. And what I want to do is go Open. Nope, sorry, not that one. Open. And I've got now the option to upload what I just downloaded, that Microsoft Word document. Here it is here. Now, once it opens this up, You watch the logo over on the top left change from a doc to changing to a Word document. So up it opens. So it's now saying, okay, this is now a Word document. So anything I do on here is as a Word document. So even though it hasn't changed that, it's now going to be a Word document. So I can ask people to collaborate and share on this one as well and work on it at the same time as me. And they'll be able to do that as a Word document that I can then download. So it then keeps it as a Word document. So if you load up anything for anyone else as a Word document, it doesn't need to convert it to a Docs document to be able to work on it collaboratively with other people. You can now do that with Word and Excel and with PowerPoint, all within these tools. So jumping back to our Excel spreadsheets in the version of Google Sheets, much of these things are the same. You've got all the same kind of things of entering charts, you get into functions, you can insert stuff like images, drawings, or forms. So they're another thing we'll look at very shortly as well. And you can pretty much create your sheets, rename them down here and call this Monday, and then create another sheet. You can right click on it and then, duplicate it or copy it to somewhere else. You can protect it by putting a password on that particular sheet if you like, and to stop people from adding onto it. Or you can then go add a new sheet and call it maybe Tuesday. So it's all very much the same. Now, if someone else was collaborating with me at the same time and watching all this going on, they would see what I'm doing in here. They would actually see how it's working. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put on this particular podcast topics one, I'm going to go over to another screen. So I want you to watch when someone else opens this up and starts interacting with it. So I'm going to share it out to one of my other email addresses. So it's not one of my organizational ones. It is just another Gmail address. I'm going to send it out and notify them that I'm creating that person to be an editor. So they're going to go over. They're outside my organization, so it's warning me that I maybe shouldn't be trusting this person, but since it's me, I'm okay with that. Now I'm going to disappear over to another screen that you can't see me on at the moment. I'm going to then open up that sharing request that just came through to that email. So I'm going to drag this down and actually show you what this looks like. So here we go. So now it's actually shared with me in this other email that I've got a request to share. So I'm going to open it up. So that's what that invitation looks like. So it's exactly the same sheet. See that? I'm going to put that one back out of the way so you can see what this is going to look like once I'm doing this within from another location. So let's go into my podcast topics. Move my photo out of the way. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some stuff. Now, I want you to now look at B3. Notice how it's got a square around it now. I'm now typing in on another screen, on another place. It could be anyone, anywhere in the world saying, this is what I'm typing. So I put that in and now it's going to, see how it did that? It's entered in, this is what I'm typing. And it's now I've moved down to the other one. Now I may want to change that this is what I'm typing. So I'm not typing this on the sheet. I'm doing this from the version of the sheet that this other email address is seeing. I can then add maybe a yellow background. So once I do it over on that sheet, look, it updates there. So it's actually showing me someone else is working on this and showing me where they're working on it so that I can collaborate in real time with them. Likewise, if I was to change anything over here from acquiring new customers and change it to yellow pages, feasibility, that would now show up on the document that the other person is seeing because we're working in real time at the same time. Really useful for when you want a one source of truth document where everything is in there but is editable by certain people so that you've got the same information going in at the same time to absolutely everybody so that everyone knows where they stand with that particular document or that particular spreadsheet. So that then takes us into what the slides are. So Google Slides, remembering that this is just Google's version of PowerPoint. So I can look at things like I can open up a blank one. I can use previous ones. I've got lots of my Facebook ones here from when Facebook send me their materials they want me to do. I've also got several of these that have been set up as ASBAS Digital Solutions things. I've got some pretty old things that I've done from maybe 2018. So I've been doing this for quite some time. let's, for instance, now set up a blank one. So a new presentation, give it a name, call this, the demo presentation. Spelling again, Dante, what are you doing? Okay, now I can then create what I want to create. So let's just say I want to create something that's has a particular theme. I can look through the themes. Now, there's not as many as there is in Microsoft, but there is a marketplace out there with lots more of them. So there's actually quite a few in there. You just choose the theme you want. You can import a theme from elsewhere. So you can go out in the marketplace and see more of this sort of stuff. Or I could just go, you know what, I'm pretty happy with the themes that are on here. I'm going to take this purple one, and now it's going to open up then a purple one. And every new page I want to add on is now in this theme. So if I go, I want to add a new slide, it's now got the new slides that are available in this particular theme, so that I'm keeping that theme nice and consistent. So I go, here is my title. And now I've got the same kind of thing you would do with PowerPoint. I can insert a picture in there if I want to. So I can upload something, or I can, take another photo of myself doing a stupid move on the camera. And I can insert that one, and there you go. It inserts it in there and kind of puts it in a really good position. I can move it around a bit because I don't want it to be necessarily there. I want to make it here, grow it out a bit, maybe make it a square. It's going to make it a bit, not great. But yeah, we can do all that and then go to the next page, and then we can duplicate pages just by going, duplicate slide. You can change the background, apply a different layout if you want to. So there's different layouts, and go, oh, actually, I made a mistake. I want this one. And then it gives you that one. So same thing, you'd add text boxes as you can do on Microsoft as well. So this is a text box. Highlight that and change the color if I want to. Or even change the font from Source Sans to maybe Animatic SC. Then make the whole thing bigger. Make it bigger. And then even maybe put like a background behind it. So I can go, okay, I want that to be a yellow background. There we go. So this is much the same as anything you would do in PowerPoint. Now you can open up and manipulate PowerPoint things in here as well. So if I go to do File and Open, and I open one of my previous ones, so I can look at in my drive at the moment, I've got some that are already PowerPoint presentations. So I might look for presentations that are in, let's just look for any presentations that are in there. It's not really finding any. Let me just go and back to the front and grab one of those old ones that I've set up before. So in here, see how it's this one, the demo presentation, has got the yellow icon. So that yellow icon is telling me that that is a Google Slides presentation. Whereas this next one is actually P for PowerPoint. So it's actually got PowerPoint. So if I open that up now, that's going to open up editing a PowerPoint presentation in Google Docs. Now this one's set up to view only. I have to request edit access from the owner to be able to do that, which is Facebook themselves. So I'm not allowed to edit these ones. They can only edit these ones. Or I can go to this one, which, I can make some changes through here, but see, it won't let me actually make them. I can't actually do those changes myself. I have to go back to the owner and request to do those. So I can always make a copy of it though. Copy the entire presentation. It's still copying it as PowerPoint. It's not changing it to Google Docs. And I can still then play with this particular slide in Google Docs, even though it's a PowerPoint presentation. So that's why I think it's made a big difference in the most recent years, is that you're not just playing with Google's own versions of this. You're now playing with a full suite that works really well with the existing tools out there that most people use. So now if I go in here to change this to my name, I've got a version that I'm allowed to change and manipulate the way I want to. And I can even insert one of my stupid photos in there as well. Insert an image, make it a camera photo. And again, we'll just go and insert that in there instead of the very lovely lady who's in there. So I go in over the top, make it my photo in there. And there we go. I've created essentially an edit to a PowerPoint presentation. within Google Docs without having to. Now, this particular feature isn't just available for paid versions of Google Suite. This is also available for people who have the free version of Gmail. So the power of this is pretty great. You don't have to then pay to get all these features. Where the paid version comes in is when you're looking at things such as your domain name, having a domain name and an administration console as well. So I will show you the administration console very shortly as we're getting very, very close to wrapping up. What I want to do show you is Google Forms. So Google Forms allows you to create forms within this account as well. So let's just say I'm just going to do it from here. So I want to create a form that I want to send out to people to fill out like a survey almost. So I just literally put in what I want it to be. This is going to be called, we're going to call it the burger survey. It's getting to lunchtime, so I want to have some food. I'm getting hungry. So I can say, who makes the better burger? And I can have options. I can have McDonald's. I put number 2 can be Hungry Jack's. And they have Betty's Burgers. If you ever heard of them, they're in the Gold Coast and Brisbane. They're absolutely amazing. Ben's Burgers. We can say Burger Urge. We can keep on having as many of those as we want. You can also have not just multiple choice, but check boxes, a drop-down list of options, short answers, longer answers. You can have linear scales. So you can say, let's have we can have from a scale from 1 to 5, we say, are you happy right now? And the linear scale will be at number 1, it's not happy. And the other one can be maniacally happy. And so when that appears as a question, it will, well, let's have a look. Let's see the preview. It appears as one of these scales. So you can get all these answers through your forms and essentially do a survey that's costing you absolutely nothing to do. This is also available through just a regular Gmail account. You don't have to use a paid account to get hold of these features. What the difference is though, is that I can create this to share just within my organization. So within this particular Dante at Treaty, so Treaty Business Consulting, or if I want to share in one of my other organizations like Clickstarter, I can do that and just share it internally. So it only goes to people internally with that link. Otherwise, I can make this public so the rest of the world can see it, and I can then get those responses. And the responses come up in this over here. So it'll tell me if I've got responses coming through, what the responses are, and give me graphs of showing how happy people are. So I can get a quick little check amongst the 12 people who work for me. Are they happy? And they're all saying they're about sort of meh, in the middle. So I'm going, okay, well, it's a bit of work to do in the organization with the culture to make people feel a bit better about working with me at the time. So that's a really good little tool and free. So again, you don't need SurveyMonkey. You don't need any complicated forms. You can even embed this into other tools. So you can take this and embed it into other tools. So by making it, you can limit it to one response. So people have to sign into Google and they can do one response only. Or you can do response receipts that go to people to say, hey, you did this survey. Here's what you put in. So they've got a reminder of it. And, we can also customize the colors and all that. Your layouts are not going to be much different. It's all going to be the same, but you're just going to change, colors to make it suit a bit better to what you want it to look like. And then have a header image. You can do that. So you put a header image like that in the background. And so the whole thing just looks a little bit prettier. There we go. Probably would have been better off putting an image of a burger in there. So that's Google Forms. It's also part of Google Workspaces and Gmail as well. Now, what I want to show you now is to go into the admin interface of Google. Now, I don't want to log into that particular account. I want to log into, not that one either. I want to go into this one. It's got to go in the right place to get to it. All right, so I've got it. So go admin.google.com. And what this will do is log me into my admin interface for the organization under that domain name. So in this case, the domain name is under Clickstarter. So it's Dante at clickstarter.com.au. That's the admin person for that particular company. It's going to verify that this is absolutely, definitely, positively me. I've got all my LastPass filling out my passwords. And now I've got my interface, which actually gives me the opportunity to be able to manage things like my payments, the domains that I'm managing under here. So it's just clickstarter.com.au. I can have a primary and secondary domains. I can create new users, which creates a new email address for that person. I can delete the users I've currently got or update a user's name or email. So if I go on to delete a user, I can see, okay, who is the one I want to delete. I don't want to do this because I'd rather see my list first to see who's got an account that doesn't actually need to have one. I can go to users, and that will show me my list of users. So at the moment, I've got info at Clickstarter, support at Clickstarter, which is an alias. So that one is active, but I actually don't need it. So I'm going to get rid of that one. I don't need it. I'm paying extra for that. I don't need it. So I'm going to go info at clickstarter.com.au is now going to receive all the email and calendar and stuff that was in there. So I'm going to delete that, transfer all the ownership over to that one. Now I've got rid of that one. It's going to reduce me down to just the 3 email addresses that are currently appropriate. This one was last used 2 days ago. So Jack, even though he doesn't work for me anymore, still uses it. Got to do contracting for certain things. And then there's other ones which I've used, within the last 24 hours, because that's my current one, and shows me how much I'm actually storing in these. So Jack's storing 6.61 gigabytes. I got 1.62 in that one and 11.7 in this one. So I'm definitely the power user amongst all this. Going back to my admin, I can then do all sorts of things like creating groups so that I can create what's a mail list. So within my organization, I can create a group, which is for everybody who has a clickstarter.com.au email address. But I can also start creating things such as, news at clickstarter.com.au, and then select which email addresses within my organization I want to have added to that. So adding these mail groups allows me to create not real email addresses, but aliases, group names. Then so if you were to email that group, it would go to all those people. So if we had a group that was, for instance, called all staff at clickstarter.com.au, and I added all the staff to it, anyone from anywhere can email that address and have it go to all of our staff. There's a lot of organizations got caught out with that stuff in the 90s and learned very fast not to do an all staff email address, because anyone from anywhere in the world can email every single person in that organization. Now, there's also different levels of like additions we can use. Say, for instance, if I want to add access for all my users to have the ability to be able to add things like Zoom to this. So you notice in my one, we had the ability to add in Zoom calls and actually have it create that Zoom call. That's all through what we call the marketplace. So in the Google Workspace marketplace apps, I've got then Zoom for G Suite is enabled for everyone. I've also enabled plugins to Xero for accounts, Salesforce, which you don't need because I don't use it. That one can actually be taken away. Monday.com. So that's it's our workflow management system that we use. And then things for icons. So I can add like a whole suite of extra icons into my slides and documents that allows me to add a little bit more color and flavor to all those. It tells me that I can add these into various people, everybody, or just to myself. I don't have to add that to everybody. I can also, for security purposes, lock everybody out from ever adding any apps on to extend the functionality if that's what I want to do. And then I can run reports on usage. I can assign an admin role to someone else, which is probably a very smart thing to do. Or I can manage migration of data from, say, Office 365 into Google Workspaces as well. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do in there to manage it like a real big organization, even if you're just a small business like anyone else. Quickly flicking to the pricing for all this. So if you're going to get the business version, the admin's tools are only available to paid people. So you can start off and get access to that stuff for $8.40 per month Australian. That's not giving you full admin access. That's full admin thing comes through the $16.80 per month version. So that way you can add in lots of custom and secure business emails. So this one's really made for if you've got like, a very, very small business that doesn't need a lot of storage or doesn't need a lot of extra stuff. At $16.80, now most of you are going to get away with $8.40. So that's going to be fine for most. 1680 is where I sit mine at, because that's what I need. I need the access to those specific things. Once you get to much more secure vaults for storing things in, that's when you get up to 25-20 per month. But most people really who are small businesses through ASBAS, even though the most popular is 1680, you're going to get it for this one. Business Starter at $8.40 a month is going to be more than enough to get you started with all those tools. So I really do encourage you to have a look at it. They give you a 14-day free trial, so you can actually see what it's like. I think it's actually 30 days actually, to see how you can make it work and whether you feel comfortable going across from what you are using to what you're using with them. Thank you so much for joining me. We're a little bit over a couple of minutes. So thank you. You can reach out to me at dante@treaty.com.au, or please do harass me and stalk me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. I love it, I promise. Thank you so much again, and have a great week. And if you want to see this again, remember you can watch it on YouTube in about 2 hours time once I've converted it over and loaded it up as well. Really hope you have a great week. I've certainly enjoyed this one, and hopefully you've learned something as well.